The call to prayer echoed across the rooftops of Istanbul, weaving through the morning mist that hovered above the Bosphorus. Ferries cut through the water, carrying tired commuters from Asia to Europe, while seagulls circled the sky with their endless cries. In the narrow streets of Katakoy, the day had only just begun. Amir pulled his worn leather jacket tighter against the chill as he walked past the open bakeries. The scent of simit, golden sesame bread rings, tempted him, but he had no time to stop. He was already late for work. His life had always been a careful balance between chasing his dreams and surviving the demands of his family. His father wanted him to join the family carpet shop, yet Amir longed to create something new, something of his own. Meanwhile, across the water in Galata, Layla carried a folder filled with her sketches. She was a student at the Fine Arts Academy, her heart beating for colors, lines, and the poetry of design. Every corner of Istanbul inspired her, from the shadowed arches of Hagia Sophia to the steep alleys of Beyoğlu. But she often felt misunderstood. Her family insisted she should focus on stability, not dreams. Layla, however, refused to surrender her passion. That morning, fate began to draw their paths together. Amir rushed to deliver a parcel near the Galata Bridge, while Layla hurried to meet her professor at a small cafe tucked between old stone buildings. Neither knew that in the labyrinth of Istanbul, where every corner holds a story, their lives were about to intertwine. As Amir turned into the cafe street, his phone buzzed with a message from his father. Distraction took over, and he almost collided with someone. Sketches scattered into the air like autumn leaves. Layla gasped, reaching for the flying papers, while Amir bent down to help. Their eyes met for the first time, in the middle of that busy street, with the cries of seagulls and the chaos of the city surrounding them. Neither spoke at first. The silence was filled only with the rhythm of Istanbul itself, timeless and restless. The papers were gathered in silence, each sketch revealing fragments of Layla's soul. Amir noticed the precision of her drawings, the way every line captured the life of the city. He wanted to say something clever, but all that escaped was a quiet apology. Layla gave a faint smile, her eyes both warm and guarded. For a brief moment, the chaos of Istanbul seemed to fade. The cafe behind them smelled of strong Turkish coffee and fresh pastries. Layla hurried inside, worried about being late for her professor, while Amir lingered at the door. Something compelled him to step inside, even though he had deliveries waiting. He found a seat near the window, pretending to check his phone while stealing glances at the girl who had just walked past him. Layla sat across from her professor, a stern man with graying hair and sharp spectacles. He flipped through her sketches with little emotion. "Your technique is fine," he said, his voice low but cutting, "but your vision is unfocused. You must decide if you are painting for yourself or for the world." His words struck Layla hard, though she tried to remain composed. From his corner, Amir watched her reaction. He could not hear the words, but he saw the way her shoulders tightened. He recognized that look. It was the same weight he carried whenever his father dismissed his dreams. Something in that silent connection made him want to protect her, though he barely even knew her name. As Layla left the cafe, her eyes caught Amir's once more. He stood, as if to speak, but she was already walking down the cobbled street, sketches pressed tightly against her chest. The sound of her footsteps echoed off the ancient walls of Galata, disappearing into the rhythm of the city. Amir stepped outside, torn between duty and curiosity. His phone buzzed again, his father demanding he return immediately. Yet his gaze lingered on the direction Layla had gone. Istanbul had thrown them together once. Would it dare to do so again? Above them, the Galata Tower rose like a silent guardian, casting its shadow across the streets, as though it already knew their story had only just begun. The evening call to prayer rolled across the city, mingling with the hum of ferries crossing the Bosphorus. Amir stood on the deck of one of them, the salty breeze brushing against his face. His father's voice still echoed in his mind, sharp with disapproval. "Stop wasting time, Amir. The shop needs you." Yet as the lights of Istanbul glittered on both shores, Amir felt the pull of something far greater than carpets and ledgers. On the opposite ferry, Layla clutched her sketchbook, her professor's words weighing heavy on her heart. She replayed them again and again, asking herself whether her art truly had a purpose. Her sketches of Istanbul's rooftops, its markets, its faces, they were more than drawings to her. They were a language she could not silence. But to the world, were they enough? That night, the city itself seemed restless. Street musicians played in Beyoğlu, the soft strings of the oud filling the narrow alleys. Friends gathered at tea houses, laughter spilling into the streets, yet both Amir and Layla walked alone in their separate parts of the city. Neither realized they were thinking of the same moment, their eyes meeting in Galata, the silence that had spoken louder than words. Days passed, and fate was not finished with them. Amir was sent once again across the Bosphorus with another delivery. His path led him to Karakoy, a place where the modern and the ancient clashed in perfect harmony. As he stepped into a small bookshop to escape the drizzle, he froze. Layla was there, her sketchbook open, her pencil moving quickly as she captured the rain against the glass. For a moment, he considered leaving, slipping away before she noticed. But then she looked up, her gaze steady, almost as though she had been expecting him. "Hello again," she said softly. The storm outside raged, yet inside that little bookshop, the air was still. The bookshop smelled of ink and old paper, its wooden shelves rising high with volumes that seemed older than the city itself. Amir hesitated at the doorway, unsure whether to step closer. Layla's pencil paused above the page, her eyes fixed on him with a quiet intensity. "You again," she said, her voice carrying a trace of surprise and curiosity. Amir smiled awkwardly, running a hand through his hair. "I could say the same about you." The storm outside struck harder against the glass, thunder rumbling over the Bosphorus, as though the city wanted to keep them inside together. They spoke at first in fragments, safe words about the weather, about books, about sketches. Yet the silence between their sentences was heavier, charged with the weight of unspoken thoughts. Amir asked about her drawings, and Layla reluctantly turned the page of her sketchbook. Each image carried the heartbeat of Istanbul, its fishermen on the bridge, its restless ferries, its ancient domes. Amir studied them with an awe he could not hide. "No one has ever looked at my work like that," Layla whispered. "Maybe no one has seen what I see," Amir replied. The air thickened with something fragile, something dangerous. Just as Layla's lips parted to answer, the bookshop door creaked open. A tall man entered, his coat dripping from the rain. He glanced at Layla, then at Amir, his eyes sharp with suspicion. Without a word, he walked to the back shelves, yet his presence unsettled the moment. Layla closed her sketchbook quickly, her expression shifting. Amir sensed the sudden change, but chose not to question it. The stranger lingered, pretending to browse, though his gaze flickered toward them more than once. When Layla finally stood to leave, Amir followed her into the rain. The city streets glistened beneath the storm, lantern lights reflecting in puddles. "Who was he?" Amir asked gently. Layla shook her head, her voice barely audible. "Someone who does not belong in my world anymore." The rain drowned out her words, but Amir understood enough to know that Layla carried a secret, one the city would not allow to stay hidden for long. Rain still fell over Istanbul, softening the edges of the city's ancient stones. Amir and Layla walked side by side along the narrow streets of Karakoy, their steps quickened not by the weather, but by the weight of unspoken words. Behind them, the stranger from the bookshop lingered in the shadows, his silhouette blending with the wet cobblestones. Amir noticed the way Layla's shoulders stiffened each time she glanced over her shoulder. "Do you know him?" he asked. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the darkened corners of the street. "Once," she whispered, "but not anymore." They crossed the square, where merchants hurried to cover their stalls from the storm. The smell of roasted chestnuts and damp wool filled the air, ordinary details masking the tension that followed them. Amir wanted to press her for answers, but something in her silence warned him not to. By the time they reached the ferry docks, the rain had eased into a mist. Ferries rocked gently at their moorings, their lights glowing faintly against the Bosphorus. Layla stopped, clutching her sketchbook to her chest. "I should go," she said, her voice softer than the waves lapping at the pier. Amir nodded, though part of him longed to keep her near. As she boarded the ferry, Amir caught sight of a stranger again. He stood at a distance, watching Layla disappear into the crowd of passengers. His eyes then shifted to Amir, cold and deliberate, before vanishing into the night. Amir's heart pounded. Istanbul had always been a city of secrets, but now he felt pulled into one that was not his own. He told himself he should walk away, return to his father's shop, return to the life that was expected of him. Yet something deeper anchored him to Layla and to the shadows that seemed to follow her. The ferry horn wailed across the water, a haunting call that seemed less like departure and more like a warning. The next morning, the sun returned to Istanbul, gilding the domes and rooftops in soft light. Amir tried to focus on his father's shop, arranging carpets in neat rows, but his mind was restless. Every color, every pattern reminded him of Layla's sketches, the way she saw the city, with an artist's soul. By midday, Amir was sent to the Grand Bazaar for supplies. The market buzzed with life, merchants calling out their prices, tourists bargaining over silks and spices, the smell of coffee and leather weaving through the air. Yet beneath the ordinary rhythm, Amir sensed unease. He felt eyes on him, sharp and watchful. Near a stall of brass lanterns, he caught sight of the stranger again. The man moved easily through the crowd, his presence like a shadow sliding between the colors of the bazaar. Amir's pulse quickened. He turned down a narrow passage, hoping to lose him, but the footsteps followed. In a small courtyard at the heart of the market, Amir finally stopped, breathless. The stranger stepped forward, his expression cold. "Stay away from her," he said in a low voice, his Turkish accented but precise. Amir stiffened, his fists tightening at his sides.
"Why?"
"Who are you to decide?" The man leaned closer, his words sharp as a blade. "You don't know the danger she carries. Walk away before it consumes you." Before Amir could reply, the stranger disappeared into the crowd, leaving only the echo of his warning. Amir stood frozen among the merchants' cries, torn between fear and defiance. As he left the bazaar, his phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number. Only 2 words appeared on the screen.
"She's not safe."
The Bosphorus shimmered beneath the fading light, ferries moving like glowing ghosts across the strait. Amir leaned against the railing, his phone still in his hand. The message haunted him.
"She's not safe."
The words circled his thoughts like restless gulls, refusing to leave him in peace. That evening, he found himself walking toward Karakoy again, without any plan except the pull in his chest. He spotted Layla sitting alone by the water, her sketchbook open, the pages trembling in the breeze. She was drawing the skyline, minarets rising like shadows against the burning horizon. "You shouldn't sit here alone," Amir said as he approached. Layla looked up, startled, then softened. "And yet you always seem to find me." They sat in silence, the waves licking at the stone edge below. Amir wanted to ask her everything, the stranger, the warning, the danger. But instead, he said, "Someone told me you're not safe." Her eyes darkened, her pencil stilling midline. "People like to talk," she replied quietly. "But words can be as dangerous as knives." Amir studied her face, the strength in her eyes barely masking the fear beneath. "If there's something you need to tell me, I can help," he insisted. Layla shook her head. "You don't understand. My past doesn't just belong to me. If it touches you, it could destroy you too." The sound of footsteps broke the moment. Across the quay, the stranger appeared again, watching from a distance. His figure was barely lit by the street lamps, yet his presence was unmistakable. Amir stood, his body tense. But when he turned to Layla, she had already closed her sketchbook, her voice steady though her hands trembled. "Promise me, Amir. Whatever happens, you won't follow me into this." Her words felt like a door closing, yet Amir knew he could not walk away now. Istanbul itself seemed to be drawing him deeper into her secret, like the Bosphorus pulling ships into its endless current. The streets of Beogla glowed with lanterns and neon, alive with music and chatter. Yet Amir felt only the weight of Layla's words echoing in his mind. My past doesn't just belong to me. He could not let them stand unanswered. He searched for her the next evening, tracing the path she often took through the narrow alleys. At last, he found her in a quiet tea house near Galata Tower, her sketchbook open but untouched. The air smelled of cardamom and smoke, the hum of voices around them fading as Amir sat across from her. You can't keep pushing me away, he said firmly. If I'm already part of this, then tell me the truth. Layla's eyes glistened in the dim light. For a long time she said nothing, her fingers tracing the rim of her tea glass. Finally, she whispered, the man you saw, his name is Arda. He was once everything to me. But what began as love turned into chains. Her voice trembled, though her gaze remained steady. He wanted to control my art, my choices, even my future. When I tried to leave, he swore he would never let me go. That was when I realized he was more dangerous than I ever imagined. Amir felt a chill crawl down his spine. And now he's following you. Layla nodded. He won't forgive me for breaking free. Every corner of this city carries his shadow. The tea house door creaked open. Amir turned and saw Arda himself step inside, his presence filling the room like a storm cloud. His eyes found Layla immediately, a slow, deliberate smile spreading across his face. Layla's hand gripped Amir's under the table, her voice barely a breath. He doesn't just want me back. He wants to own everything I am. The sound of Arda's footsteps drew closer, each one echoing like a warning. The tea house seemed to shrink as Arda approached their table, his eyes fixed on Layla with a cold, possessive certainty. Conversations around them faltered, the hum of voices dimming as though the city itself was holding its breath. Layla, Arda said smoothly, his tone laced with menace. I knew you would come back to where you belong. Amir stood quickly, placing himself between them. She doesn't belong to you. His words were steady, but his heartbeat thundered in his chest. Arda's smile did not falter. He leaned closer, his voice dropping so only they could hear. You're brave, boy, but foolish. Do you know how deep my reach goes in the city? Do you know how quickly you could disappear? Layla rose, her hands trembling but her voice sharp. I am not yours, Arda. Not anymore. You cannot own me. The room grew tense, the other patrons staring but unwilling to intervene. Arda's expression hardened, his mask of charm slipping to reveal the fury beneath. He reached for Layla's arm, but Amir grabbed his wrist, holding him back. For a heartbeat, time froze. Then Arda leaned in, his eyes burning. You've made a mistake choosing him, Layla. This city is mine, and I will not lose. With a sudden shove, he broke free, knocking over a chair as he stormed out into the night. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving silence in his wake. Layla sank back into her seat, her breath unsteady. Amir reached for her hand, but she pulled it away, fear clouding her eyes. You don't understand, she whispered. He won't stop. He never stops. Outside, the sound of footsteps faded into the distance, but Amir knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of the storm. The night air was heavy with tension as Layla and Amir hurried through the streets, the glow of Galata Bridge ahead of them. Ferries drifted like shadows across the Bosphorus, their horns echoing in the dark. Every step carried the weight of pursuit, for they both knew Arda was not far behind. Amir gripped Layla's hand tightly, weaving through the crowds of fishermen casting their lines into the water. The bridge lights shimmered against the waves, casting reflections that danced like restless spirits. We can't keep running, Amir said, his breath ragged. We have to face him. Before Layla could answer, a figure stepped from the shadows.
Arda.
His coat billowed in the wind, his eyes glinting like steel. Behind him, two men lingered, silent and threatening. The crowd around them seemed oblivious, the hum of the city carrying on as though nothing was amiss. Did you think you could escape me here? Arda's voice was sharp, cutting through the night. This city bends to those strong enough to take it. And you, Layla, were always meant to be mine. Layla stepped forward, her voice clear despite the fear in her chest. "I am not yours. Not now, not ever." Arda's fury flared, but before he could reach her, Amir moved between them. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The confrontation erupted. A scuffle broke out, the clash of bodies against the iron railings of the bridge. Amir fought with desperation, every strike fueled by the thought of losing Layla. Arda's men surged forward, but the chaos drew the attention of nearby fishermen, who shouted and rushed to intervene. In the struggle, Arda lunged at Amir, but Layla stepped in, raising her sketchbook like a shield. It struck Arda across the face, startling him long enough for Amir to push him back. The railing groaned under the force, the Bosphorus roaring beneath. Arda's balance faltered. For a moment, his eyes widened, a mixture of rage and disbelief. Then he slipped, vanishing into the dark waters below. The crowd gasped, voices rising as the current swallowed him. Layla clutched Amir's arm, her whole body trembling. The bridge lights flickered across the waves, but Arda was gone, pulled into the depths of the Bosphorus. Amir held her close, his chest heaving. "It's over," he whispered. Yet as Layla looked out over the water, her eyes full of storm and sorrow, she knew the scars of this night would not fade so easily. Still, for the first time in a long while, she felt free.